Okay.
The Historical Commission.
Ready? Okay. It is 4:32 on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, and I call this meeting of our December Historic Preservation Commission to order. Roll call. Blaine Johnston's here. Tyler Ricks. John Keller. Josh Everts.
Present.
Destiny Hart.
Here.
Jody Alt.
Present.
Jessica Peralta. Not here. Thank you. With that, we want to welcome our new youth commissioner, John Keller. Goes by Jack. So Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
I go to Bishop Kelly High School. I'm a freshman, 14 years of age. I live in Meridian. I love history too.
Well, welcome. I hope Raul is wrong and we don't corrupt you too bad.
No, Jack, we will, I love young people that love history and want to participate. So thank you for joining us. It's a good group.
So with the introduction, we'll go to approval of minutes for our October 28th meeting.
Point of order, we have to adopt the agenda.
Oh, excuse me, adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Everts.
I move that we adopt the agenda as posted.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Everts, seconded by Commissioner Ricks for adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And none, motion carries. Thank you. Now we can approve our minutes of October 28th, 2021.
I move that we approve the minutes from the October 28, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Who was the second?
Jody.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Ricks, seconded by Commissioner Alt for approval of our October 28, 2021 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business, monthly financial statements. Ms. Belknap. Hey, everybody, just so you know, this is Audrey's last meeting with us, so we've got to say
Ooh.
goodbye to her at the end of the meeting.
Ooh. No, I'm super happy for you, Audrey.
Bittersweet. Mr. President, there is nothing of note on our financial statement. Our fiscal year started over on October 1st, and we didn't have any expenses in the month of October. Yes, so I received this financial statement on October 1st. So it's our clean slate.
Okay,
Next month, we'll show the charges for the registration to the Pass Forward Conference.
perfect.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Everts.
I move that we approve this budget and financial report as of today.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Everts, seconded by Commissioner Alt for approval of our monthly financial statement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will go on to reports. Report on Meridian Speedway nomination to National Registry by Barbara Bauer of TAG. So Barbara, you're on board.
Well, it's good to see everybody, or almost
See you too.
everybody. I am going to share my screen. We'll
Okay.
see, unless Audrey has it already, but I think I can. Bear with me, folks. You know that I'm slow at all of this.
Barbara, this presentation is dated December 2nd. Are we traveling through time? Are you that powerful at this point?
Isn't today December 2nd?
Is today? Oh, today is the 2nd.
Today is December 2nd.
Oh, That's
Yes,
on
it
me. My
is.
watch told me it was the first. Sorry, Barbara, that's on me, not you. All right.
Okay, well, let me get this up, and Audrey, if I have problems, I know I sent it to you, so,
Yeah, I'll have it as a backup.
okay. And just bear with me because I'm always really slow at this.
Jack, this is another reason you don't spend a lot of time with me. I can't even keep track of days.
Yeah, here we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
All right. Well, it's kind of amusing. Oh. Whoops. Uh-oh. Every time, believe me, I do a bazillion Zoom presentations. Every time I present to you, I have a problem. Audrey, can you pull it up for me, please?
Yep, pulling it up right
Okay,
now.
sorry about that. It is, yeah, I must have something in my computer that doesn't like Meridian. Okay.
It's me that doesn't like.
I don't know. So is it coming up?
Yeah, it's not coming up in my folder. I'm going to pull it up on my email.
Okay. So while Audrey is doing that for me, we are getting close to the grinding end of being able to turn this over to SHPO. And I'm really happy about that. You may have learned that doing a National Register nomination is a slow and arduous process. And in the years that I've been doing them, it appears to me that they've gotten even more difficult because of the levels of requirements that have come along through the different years. So what will be happening now is that next week, SHPO will get the draft nomination. And at that time, they make another review. I've been working really closely with Jason, who is the new National Register. There we are. Thank you. The new National Register liaison. And so it's been good because we've had really close contact. And so Audrey, if you could just kind of go through the first, I think we want to go down to the third slide. You all have seen these pictures before. So what we did is, since I last spoke to you, over the summer, I actually met with Jason and Dan Everhart at SHPO several times regarding the survey and the site forms that I had done. And they just had a couple of comments that I had to work on over the course of the summer. And that was, they wanted to have more in-depth description of the contributing and non-contributing resources. So the Speedway is unusual because it has been in existence for 50 some years and being used continually by the racers. There have been a number of upgrades that they do because they want to keep things going. And so the contributing, which means those buildings that are of historic age and have the historic and structural integrity, the architectural integrity from the 1950s when the site was originally started, there aren't as many of those buildings as they are what they call the non-contributing buildings. Those are the buildings that are less than 50 years old, and those are structures that that do not have the architectural significance. It doesn't mean that the nomination won't go ahead. It's just that they wanted me to provide a little bit more documentation and really make a better argument as to why the site can still be eligible to the National Register. And then they had me expand on the period of significance. And that is because we'll see the slide a little bit later, but the characteristics, the features that make the Meridian Speedway eligible to the National Register are because it retains the oval track. It has the seating for the people who come to watch the races. It has concessions. So those are things that are very important to the time period in which we are laying out our statement of significance. However, the west bleachers, which were constructed in 1952, have been upgraded. In 1981, they were completely replaced because they were unsafe. And in fact, You all may know that in 1979 and 1980, they being the city of Meridian, actually considered shutting the site down because of safety issues. And because of that, that is when those bleachers were replaced. So they're not quite 50 years old. They're getting close, but they're not quite 50. So I had to work on the period of significance and explain why, even though we have these newer elements, it would still be within the period of significance from 1951 to 1981. And then I had to update the map. They wanted to have a map that better showed what was contributing and non-contributing. And they also discussed having us, taking some of those buildings out and identifying it as a smaller district. But as we went on through the summer, and after we met over at the Speedway in, I think it was August, Audrey, was it July or August? We met over there with Jason and Dan. After some consideration, then they decided, no, let's just go ahead and keep the boundaries as they are. Next one, please. Next slide, there we go. And so I was just trying to outline the different things that we talked about. And when we went to our July site visit, what came up was the fact that Adam Nelson mentioned that the racers may have used the canal bank to access the Speedway. And that opened up a lot of questions by SHPO as to, well, if the racers were using that to access the Speedway, then they were thinking perhaps it should be the canal bank itself should be included as part of that southern boundary. Next slide, please. And then the next one, we'll go one more. So what we ended up doing is I went ahead and asked Audrey, and I asked you all if you would contact the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, because I wasn't sure if we would need their permission or if we were going to include the canal bank in the boundary. So as you can see in that lower left-hand picture, if you look to the far left, you can see where the canal is, and then you can sort of see the roadway that butts up against the track and against those bleachers that face to the southwest. So I ended up talking to a number of people. I ended up talking to Stan Fuller over at the Idaho Historical Society, Racing Society, and asked him if he knew of anybody who had actually been racing in those early years from like 1951 to 1960. And if he recalled conversations with any racers having used that canal bank as an access road. He couldn't really remember. He said that, because he wasn't a racer, but he said, well, he didn't know. So he gave me the name of Warren Culver. And Mr. Culver started racing in 1953. He actually was at the Speedway when they first initiated racing in the 50s, and then he went off to the Korean War. And when he came back, he became a racer. He raced from 1953 until 1971 or 72. And then he was a member of the Meridian Speedway board. So he was pretty cognizant of what was going on during that time period. And when I asked him if he could remember or if they used the canal bank, he said, not really. He said there was a roadway over there, but he said, no, he didn't remember anybody actually using it as an access to the Speedway. And then he explained to me and described to me the fact that to access the Speedway, you actually would come in either from the parking area that is there today, and then the pit area was in the center of the oval. So all the drivers would have been lined up in the middle of the oval. And he said that there was actually a crash wall at the far south end and also on the west side. And so it wasn't really something that was used for, by the racers. But it was a big question. It took me a couple of months to kind of figure all of that out. And, I know that we contacted NMID, and they were a little bit concerned that we might want to include them in that south boundary. But I know that SHPO was just being careful to make sure that it wasn't an important component to the feature of the whole site. And now today, of course, you don't even know that the canal is there. I mean, I think a lot of people have no idea that 8 Mile runs on the south side of the canal. And then I'm going to back up for a minute, because the other thing that I was talking about earlier were these bleachers. the West Side Bleachers. And as you can see again, if you look in the lower left, you'll see that there are bleachers on the west side, and there are also bleachers that are angled on the southwest side. That southwest set of bleachers is today where they have the bleachers for people with adaptive needs. So that's, those are not really used in the same manner. But the west side bleachers, even though were built in 1981, they are still in the same place. They still say that, serve the same purpose. So these are just two separate photos, one that shows you from 1964, what everything looked like, and then from the 1970s. So all of this is important in the long run to getting the Speedway, through the whole nomination process. So the next one, please. And this is just, again, I'll be including a lot of these photos in the nomination and describing them and talking about them in the narrative of the nomination. And when you look at this photo, which is actually already dated because that dirt oval in the middle, they took that out this past year because they aren't doing that anymore. But you can see the canal on the far left, but there really is, they really did not use it to access the roadway. But again, the emphasis is going to be in the nomination, what are the character defining features? And those character defining features are the oval raceway, the spectator areas, the concession stands, and then the parking lot, which is still sort of in the same area. Most of those buildings that we can see in this modern photo over there on the right-hand side or east side of the photo, those all date from the 1990s and 2000s. But SHPO is pretty confident that this nomination is going to go through based on all the adjustments I've made and based on the conversations they've actually had with their liaison back in DC about the Speedway. I guess he's a racing fan, so he's really excited that this is coming through and across the table here in the next couple of months. Next one, please. So this is all, again, more about this boundary discussion. And I have to say, the Idaho Historical Racing Society is a gold mine of photos, and I'm so happy that we were able to get in touch with them because they have provided us with images we would not have had otherwise. But again, this is from 1959, and you can really see the whole layout. And if you compare it to our more modern picture, take a look again, the oval, basically same location, our concessions and our seating area are all in the same place. What's interesting in this photo is you can actually see the grandstands on the north side before they put the second level of bleachers on top of it. So that happened not too long after this photograph. By the 1960s, they had added that grandstand on top. And there are those lights. I think earlier I told you guys those lights came from Boise Junior College. So those are some good images. The next one, please. And again, just all of these photos are going to be used in the nomination to make the case that this site retains its historic integrity. There have been some changes over time, but when you look at the site today, you can still get the sense, the setting, the feeling of the site as it was when it was originally constructed. And it still conveys its relationship to recreation and entertainment as a sporting event, and also its early agricultural roots. And the next one. And next slide. And I just put, go back. I just put I put this one in because that is the crash wall at the south end of the Speedway. And you can see that some jalopies have crashed into the car or into the wall. And one of the things Mr. Culver told me is that one of his buddies actually crashed into the wall and ended up with the wood going through the front of his vehicle. So it was kind of a dangerous proposition. But anyway, so I just wanted you guys to see that one as well. And then the next one, please. So what are the next steps? Well, the next steps are that I have taken all of the information from the site survey and from the site forms, and I then have to reformat it and rewrite it, and it goes into the National Register nomination form, these are the first 2 pages that you're looking at. when nominations are done, they typically can run up to 70 pages. So it'll be a pretty full document when it's completed. It will contain all of the information that was in the original survey, but all of that will be expanded on. It will go to SHPO, and SHPO takes a look at it. And if they have any questions or if they want more tinkering and editing, they send it back, and I'll do that. And hopefully I won't have to, because we've been talking about it and going back and forth so much. And then what happens is that's in January. So in January, they will get the draft nomination and they will have it until June. And in June, I'll attend the Idaho Historic Sites Board Review Meeting. And that is the meeting where the board goes over all of the nominations that are written by other people throughout the state. And they either will say, yes, we agree, it should move on, or they send it back for more work. But typically when it gets to the point of going to the review meeting, because SHPO staff works so closely to make sure that the nomination is ready to go, it's not often that you will get something back in June. After that, after it's approved by the Historic Sites Review Board at the state level, it is then sent to the National Park Service. They then review it and they make their determination if it is going to be listed to the register in October, and then that listing occurs in November. So we will know by probably early September, or I guess it would be early October, we will know if they have approved it. And then it's just the official steps that they go through to give it a stamp of approval and then list it in the National Register. So we're really close. This is going to go over to SHPO next week. And I feel like it's been a good process. It was really good because Dan and Jason, after they read the survey report, they wanted to go to the site. And so Audrey arranged, a meeting for us to go over to the Speedway, all of us together. And we were lucky because Adam Nelson happened to be there that day, and he actually walked around with us and talked to us a little bit more about some of the buildings and some of the things that he knew and remembered and whatever. So it was a really good meeting. And, I think everybody is pretty excited that this is, possibly going to make it the whole way. And again, the fellow who is the guru basically at the National Park Service seems to be very interested in this particular site. So again, it'll be a little different than the Firebird Raceway because we're talking about two different kinds of racing. And also the Meridian Speedway is very unique because of its ties to agriculture and the dairy board, and it's very unusual in that aspect. So that's where I am as today on December 2nd. And I wanted to ask, I know that we're slated possibly to go to the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District meeting next week and talk to them. So I don't know if that's still on the board. I've got it on my calendar.
Robert's Blaine. Yes, I think we still want to talk to him. Let him know that we're not going to list the canal as part of the nominations or survey for nominations, so they're not going to be a part of it. But also just to let them know that we're want to be partners with them. We know that irrigation has had such an important history in Meridian. So we just want to play nice with them.
Yeah, I get that. Yep. And I've worked with them in the past, and they've always been really helpful when I needed to look at some documents and different things. And so I think it would be really great for them to see that even though, the canal is not part of the Speedway, just that closeness and that continuity between the irrigation and agriculture and the Speedway is pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm happy to be there, and we'll bring.
I think Josh and I are both going to go to that meeting also, so we can provide backup, moral support, whatever for you on that. I do have one question for you,
Yes.
and it's regarding the bleachers.
Yes.
Since they've been rebuilt and they're not original, and I'm just thinking as an architect, because of life safety issues, basically is why they were rebuilt. That I don't think know that should deter them, because more than anything, that's the biggest thing as architects we have to worry about is the life safety of people.
Well, and that's what I have to really had to respond to in the narrative. I
Okay,
had to, I actually did try to contact, oh, darn it, the gentleman's name just escaped me. Hans gave me the name of Mr. Ramsey. I'm trying to remember his first name. I called him a couple times, but I didn't hear back from him. But he was part of the crew that in 1979 or 1980, they actually, they ended up, the fire department was going to shut them down. So they had to do something. And again, because the bleachers are still, in the historically the same location, even though they're different material, you still have that same setting and feeling. And those bleachers do not detract from the overall integrity of the site.
okay.
But that's what I had to do in the report. Yeah, Brian, I had to make sure I really emphasized the fact that it was because of safety issues and whatever. And they didn't put him somewhere else. They put him in the same location.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President.
Josh?
Barbara, great job as always. I wouldn't expect anything less on the 2nd of December here. Question that I have for you, because I think this is part of the issue that the Nampa Irrigation District brought up, and that is, there's a life to these even bleachers that are up there right now. If they were put in 81, they're 40 plus years old now. This being put on this national registry, that's not going to impede in any way when the Speedway needs to upgrade those, update those, that they're not prohibited from making those kinds of changes. Or obviously if they clean the site, that would be it, but that they're not limited from doing anything like that, correct?
That is correct. Being on the National Register is honorary.
Okay.
And, what they do request, what the Park Service does request is that if people are going to be making changes, and typically this is for like structures, buildings, this is such an unusual site.
Yeah.
But typically they do have some guidance. If you want to do something, they'll say, well, we may have these suggestions, but it does not mean that people can't make changes to their property.
Okay, great.
So
Thanks,
that's
Barbara.
that's always a concern people have, but being on the National Register does not mean you can't do what you need to do to your property or site.
Got it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Barbara?
Well, I'll keep you posted, and Jason is really good at letting me know where things are. So as soon as I hear back from him, I'll continue to keep I'm sorry, Audrey, I did not know that we're not going to be with the city anymore. So I'm sure you'll connect me with whomever I need to be in touch with, but I'm sorry that you're leaving. So
Yes, absolutely. I'll connect you with the person who follows me, and we'll definitely be talking in the next month. I still have about a month left. So
oh, good. Okay, good. All right. That's great. Well, thank you all. Any more questions for me?
I don't have any, and we'll see you on Tuesday at Nampa Meridian Irrigation District Board meeting.
Okay, and I'll be there a little bit early. I'll be there probably about 20 minutes early. So
Sounds good.
Yeah, I have a beard and Blaine is old, so we'll be there.
I'm happy that at least we got a Zoom and see each other, so we'll know who we're looking for.
True.
So
I'm tough to miss.
If you have nothing else for me, may I leave the meeting? Is that all right?
Yes.
Fine.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, with that, we will go on to item 5, reports from Pass Forward Online National Preservation Conference. So Jody, I'll let you go first and give us a little talk, and then I'll let Tyler, and then I'll finish up.
Mr. President, thank you. I just had a couple of things. I think the conference, at least the ones that I watched, did an amazing job of introducing new resources for us to use. That was one thing I got from there. I also was impressed with the idea of bringing in some more of pre-Meridian history. Because a lot of the issues dealt with the ones that I watched, dealt with things with pre-Meridian history. So I'm not sure that all of them would work with what we're doing, but the amount of resources to me was amazing.
Sounds good. Thank you. If you had any notes or whatever, I don't know if Audrey got hold of you. Could you email those to Audrey? That way we can have all the notes in our amended agenda packet so that everybody can read them next month.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Riggs.
Just to second what Jody said, being new to the whole historical preservation thing, it was an eye opener. They covered a lot of issues from Native Americans to LGBTQ to women history and whatnot, and just kind of to have a pulse on what was going on in the historical preservation and those aspects and other aspects, not just here in Idaho, but across the country, was really interesting. Like Jody said, a lot of resources that we have as a commission to use, whether it's the grants, funding, whatever, that I didn't know existed, and just things that, one thing that they talked about was restaurants, and an aspect that was like, well, what can we do here in Meridian for something that kind of made it relate to Meridian. I thought was really interesting. And then just the fact they said, make sure we invite our local elected officials, whether that's at the federal level or here locally. One of the good examples of this is that in my other job as a library trustee, we had the governor come to our unbound location down here in downtown Meridian, and I mean, couldn't believe it, just the historical aspect we talked about, the unbound location where it was at, and then but just all the stuff around it and what the governor remembered back when he was a child or et cetera, or a young adult. And just that aspect, people are interested, people do want to know. I think we just need to put that content out there, and I think that's what we're doing that as a commission. So I like it.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just do a brief overview. Since my background is architecture, I kind of focused on the technical classes that they had. But it was a great program. They had a lot of good information on window replacements to using the building codes to save historic buildings and what you can and cannot do. Funding that's available for us, using historic preservation funds to save an underrepresented history. That has to do a lot with us for our still rural locations. Maybe there's some things we can use for that. Solar energy approaches on historic buildings, what you can and cannot do. And then conducting an actual survey for historic building assessments, the things you have to go through and the steps you have to do a survey on an old building. So it was a good session. I wish it would have been live and could have gone to it. Hopefully in the future, we can go back to that so you guys can go see this. But yeah, it was a good conference. I think Audrey's got my notes. They'll be in a packet, even though I just saw a spelling error. Sorry. I'll get that fixed and sent back over to Audrey, but it was a good conference. So I really enjoyed it. So that's all I got.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Rivers.
we kicked it down the road. I think I brought it up in October leading up to this conference about, and I think now's an apt time to talk about it, about possibly looking at some guidelines for us in terms of participation that we as commissioners would have during our 2-year term, making sure that we are regularly going to these. I'm speaking as the person who didn't go to this conference.
Of course.
So I'm exposing my deficiencies here. But is that something that we would ever look at, I guess, as a commission, that part of our 2-year time that we would commit to a certain amount of hours of continuing education? I mean, we have budget. I feel like I'm hearing that everybody got some great, I'm very, very curious about the Native American. Like there are things that are stirring things in me that I think we benefit from when we go learn. So
As a CLG, so it's a certified local government operating group, which is our HPC, we are by SHPO law, I guess, for lack of better, we're required to have so much continuing education. So yeah, we're supposed to go to these classes.
Okay.
To learn.
Okay.
So there's the National Trust for Historic Places, that Pass Forward. National Association of Preservation Commissions, they have one. It's called Forum 2022. It's probably going to be a virtual one next year that we can attend.
Okay.
Pass Forward is every year, so maybe next year do another virtual one.
So we don't track this. So what are we required by the state? Audrey?
We do track it.
We do. So for our CLG status,
Mhm.
we do need to have a certain amount of training hours.
Okay.
I don't think there's a specific number. They just ask. It's one of the questions when we renew our status.
Yeah.
They ask how many commissioners attended conferences, which conferences.
Okay.
And so we just renewed our status a couple months ago, which is why this is semi-fresh, but I don't think they have a hard number. They just make sure that we are,
We're doing it.
at least some of us are.
So these sessions that were made available, how long were they? On average, 90 minutes?
Some went from a half an hour. My building assessment one was an hour and a half.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to recommend for us to consider, and I don't, we don't need to necessarily take this up tonight, but I would think it would be appropriate for us as commissioners that during our 2 years, we would be committing to 2 hours, an hour each year that we can book and that all of us would be held accountable to. I just think that would be healthy. I
Mhm.
think it incents the right behavior. I think it's something that we can all point to. It's something even as our young Jack here is accumulating things to get scholarships in the future when he goes to, workshops for the next 4 years on Native American history and things that are happening with irrigation or whatever knowledge. These are all things that are going to look great, that are going to get him huge scholarships.
Yeah.
And I just think I think it's healthy. So I don't know if we need to mandate that or do it informally and hold each other accountable. I don't know what's appropriate, counselor.
So I guess it's really the pleasure of the commission. I mean, certainly it's a voluntary commission.
Mhm.
So whether you want to I never recommend mandating you do something that only you can enforce anyway.
Yes.
So it really is something that I think should be a conversation always with the commission. I agree with you completely. Continuing education for this arena is really important for the health of this commission and then
Yeah.
the benefits of the city. If you want to pass a resolution just saying that you as a commission feel that's important and you want to make a commitment to doing it, again, we're not going to penalize people
Yeah.
because you all have busy lives, but that you find that important. I can draft something for your next meeting. I can send it out ahead of time for you to take a look at, see if that meets the intent of what you're wanting.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I'm happy to do that. If you want to take a stab at it, I'm happy to help format it into a kind of our normal procedural format that we use, whichever your preference is.
No, I don't think a mandate is important, but I think a little shame is in order.
Right.
So what I would propose, and I don't know if the minutes are the right place to keep a running log or if it's somewhere else, but I think it should be in front of us on a regular basis. And maybe we just do a quarterly status check on everything, but during our execution year, so from October 1 through the end of September, I think it should be in front of us that, hey, Commissioner Everts has 0 hours, Blaine's got, 2 hours, and we reset it at the end of every year. It's just something we just have in front of us, and that could be something for,
Right.
Blaine as our president or me, to, nudge people if young Jack here is slacking on his hours. We encourage him to greatness.
Yes.
Yeah, but not be a mandated thing. I agree with you, because at the end of the day, what are we enforcing?
I think definitely it's something that is a very important topic for the commission.
Yes.
in front of you.
Yeah, and I would love to have that be a part of what we present to city council. Like when Blaine and I give our updates, I think it's meaningful for them to hear that our commissioners, we went to workshops, you talk about the LGBTQ, like these are things that like typically you don't equate that with Historic Preservation Commission activities, but these are communities of citizens that we have here. And the fact that we are looking at issues respected to those communities and making sure that this is something that we are keeping in mind as we operate as a commission. I think that's good for the city, and I think our city council would appreciate that.
And that's what they talked about, is that it's not just a building, it's the culture, it's a people.
Yeah.
So how do we represent what's gone on in the past to bring it alive today.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. President,
Mr. Neri, for you, if it's a resolution, does it have to go before city council or is it just something within our commission?
It certainly could just be something for the commission. And again, I think, as Commissioner Everett said, I think it's a great thing to share with the
Yeah.
council.
Okay.
to Get you your annual update, but certainly it only has.
Okay, perfect. If you would like to draft something for us for our January meeting,
I can do that.
Because I'm not capable of doing that.
Mr.
we
President.
know what your resolution would be.
Yes, it would be very verbose. Verbose. That's the word of the night tonight.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Auld.
I have one caution. As we are now, we can attend this as we want to. We can do this virtually, but in my case, to take days off of work to attend a conference would be pretty detrimental to my job.
Right, I agree, and we understand that there's guidelines that we're gonna have to take part of. As much as I enjoy going to the conferences and meeting people and interacting with people, the virtual one made it a lot easier. I can do it in the evening. It was a webinar. I could stop, pause, I could make my notes and then continue on. So it is something that even if they're just virtual, whether it's the Idaho Heritage Conference or these other ones that have been mentioned, you can do those after work.
Right.
Yes, I agree, but my caution is we are in that type of a situation right now with COVID. And if that changes, to mandate it may be a problem.
Mr. President, Jody's right. The NAPC Forum conference is going to be in person in Cincinnati. So a lot of the conferences that have been virtual the last couple of years might be going in person, but there are, the National Preservation Commission has tons of resources and monthly webinars.
Right.
That it's not a full-on conference, but they're monthly webinars that also could be counted as this.
Correct.
Yeah. Jody, I don't think the intent of this is to put anybody at risk or cut into how much time we're already donating. I agree. I think there's got to be lots of materials out there, videos. I mean, this could even be something that, we could stumble across, a YouTube video where a municipality, another historic preservation commission talks about an initiative that they put forward. I would consider watching that as something that we're learning from somebody else and bringing back value. So I think we should be not restrictive, make this more of a feel good, like we want to get better as commissioners and give lots of broad discretionary credit for things that we're engaging in.
And it goes to your point, even if we find something like on YouTube, that doesn't mean that we couldn't sit down as a commission, watch it at a meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we may spend an extra 20 minutes, 30 minutes watching a webinar at our commission meeting, but it's well worth the time.
And that actually is probably something to even, consider. I know we've had a couple agendas that have been pretty lean where, if we mixed in, a 20-minute, video session on something that we were learning from, I mean, I'm already here.
Yeah.
So it'd be something to look at. But Jody, I think your point's well made, girl.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. You're an oak.
Any other comments, questions?
Jack, you're awfully quiet. We're giving you more homework. Are you sure you're okay with this? Okay, good. I note that he gave a thumbs up.
All right, we'll go on to item 6, update for social media efforts. Commissioner Ricks, you're up.
It's going really well. As you saw today's post and the last couple weeks' posts have been about the Meridian Speedway, just because of the SHPO and all that stuff that we've been talking about in the previous item for the agenda. Just that's been on my mind, so that's what all the posts have been about recently. I've gone through about 75% already of the old town downtown photos that we already have off the Google Drive, but I have plenty more resources to go through. So I'm not out of material. I'm just trying to use all the easier quote unquote resources first.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Audrey, I've got a question for you. I know your time is going to be limited. On our Facebook page, I know you can invite people to join or watch it. Can you, I know SHPO's got a Facebook page. Can you invite them?
To like our page?
to like our page.
Yeah.
And they also have an Instagram.
Oh. Yes, I can send them. There's no invite to like on
Right.
Instagram, but I can send them a message. And
Right.
ask them to
But I think if we get those,
Yeah.
even the saving places, get those people and have them, that way they realize, especially with the Speedway stuff coming up, if we can get them to at least know what we're doing.
Audrey, if they choose not to like us and follow us, please do not tell us that though. That could be a tough one. to
My
swallow.
feelings would be hurt.
Yeah, in this holiday season, I can't take any more news like that. So
Mr. President,
Jody,
in that basement, there are newspapers from 1890 something on. Is there any reason we couldn't add some of those newspaper clippings about what was going on as part of our posts?
that's an excellent question. And yes, we have looked at some of those. Audrey, Josh and I spent a couple hours one day looking at them. What we need to do is find a large format scanner. And I don't know the city has one, so we'd have to look at it and see what it would cost to have those scanned in. But yeah, that's a good resource that we can look at for our social media posts.
And Jody, feel free to send it to Audrey to post something like it's not all just me finding images. I mean,
Well,
the
I've
content.
taken numerous pictures of articles in there and papers in there that I have personally when I was working down there, and that's what I was thinking of.
If you have them, send them to Audrey. And send them to Tyler also, and then we can go, then that's just another resource that we can look at and use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the suggestion. All right, with that, any topics we want to discuss in the future?
Mr. President, when Barbara was giving her presentation, I realized that we did not include this on the agenda. The deadline for grants is on December 31st. Is the commission interested? Do we need a motion to approve that? Can we even make a motion at the end of the agenda?
Mr. President, Audrey, are you asking, so have you applied for a grant, or are you saying you want the directive from the commission to apply for grants that are available between now and the end of the year?
So we already have a 2021 grant.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we're using for the work that Barbara is doing right now. And so, but when we start working on a new property this spring, whether that's the North Meridian or North Main Street survey or the Meridian Mill, whichever of those properties will most likely be in a new grant if we apply by December 31st.
We've already talked about, and I thought approved, reaching out to TAG or someone to do that work.
Right.
So if I'm not wrong, we could go ahead and apply for the grants because we've approved that work to be done.
I think it's perfectly legit for the commission to do a voice vote motion directive to do that, to move that forward. I mean, Audrey can do it anyway. I mean, she doesn't have to have the commission approval, but I think having the commission saying, please go ahead and move forward with whatever necessary for that. But let's just keep the motion, I mean, just keep the wheels going to get that done.
Okay.
Part of due course. So.
I didn't know if the commission needed a vote or a voice.
Yeah, I think a nod, that's the direction of the commission. I don't think you need to vote on that. I mean,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
your comfort level.
That's
I
good
think
to
it's
know.
fine.
yeah, definitely put in.
Yeah, so yeah, and if
We
you
like money.
if you want some help with that, reach out to Raul or myself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jack said he'd help you.
Jack's a big writer, big writer. He doesn't speak a lot, but the guy can type.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you. With that.
One more thing, sorry,
oh,
Mr. President.
Yes.
Going back, and it's back on the social media efforts. I think I'd like to get together with Tyler, and I want to make an attempt at maybe you and I can meet and go down in the archives between now and the next meeting. What I'd like to do is I think if we bring a light kit down there where we could properly light some of those articles, but maybe Tyler and I can go down there and snap photos of maybe, a couple dozen that we could look at the next meeting. I think trying to put together a large scanner effort and stuff like that, I think it's going to end up being something that doesn't get done. Whereas if we could go down there, I mean, the resolution on these phones is bananas at this point. So I just think you have to light it properly so you don't have shadows and stuff like that. So I'd just like to volunteer us to maybe before the next meeting to do a sample of maybe 20, 30 articles that we find that are interesting that Tyler could be using anyways, but come back. And if that looks like something that's of quality, then we can just make it a regular kind of quarterly meeting where we go down there by year and maybe start whacking through some stuff.
Yeah, just let me know when you two set a time. I'll just make sure that I have the keys and badges.
Oh, I already have keys and badges. I'm so sorry.
Wow,
I
look at
will-
you.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I've had the key to this city a long time.
Perfect.
Long time.
All right, then I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, that's it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Next meeting is January 27, 2022. With that, motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Rivers.
I move that we adjourn this meeting of December 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Everett, second by Commissioner Ricks for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're done. We're out of here. Thanks, everybody.